the future of sales is kind of having a revenue team?
I do think it's the golden age for revenue operations. I think that we have a lot of inner workings and a lot of trends working in our favor. So I think there's for sure AI being a catalyst for all of this. I think we have really high expectations from customers. think we have really high expectations from executives. And what I say is that there's internal bullshit, for lack of a better term, that gets in the way of the customer experience. And that's what revenue operations is supposed to do. We're supposed to work across these silos. We're supposed to protect that customer experience, and we're supposed to be, maximizing revenue at the end of the day. I don't believe in outsourcing your RevOps team. Like, we don't do the RevOps as a service type of scenario. I do think this is a function that you should build internally, because a really great revenue operator has insight into the business. They're on your all hands. They understand the strategy. They're sitting in office if you have one. They're getting really close relationships with the go-to-market leaders. They're very well trusted. And sure, that person can use an agency to create kind of more agility and more flexibility, but I don't believe in fully outsourcing it. If you sit on LinkedIn, you're going to feel left behind. You're going to think that all these companies have it figured out and they have built so many agentic workflows that they now don't have to work a day in their life, and they were able to fire the whole marketing team, and everything's just running.
Like, get those groups, get those communities, get those people, kind of follow them, what they write about, like, engage, comment, build the audience, or like build your brand with that, like then start creating your own point of view, and then through that sort of like bring the marketing. I remember I've been, for like dozen of different conferences, and
tell me how many women were there?
I don't know.
Not many. Sorry, I have an issue with founder events. There are female founders, I promise you. And every time I step into one of those events, I'm like 3 out of 100.
Like, I have a problem with Clay personally.
Okay. Hit me.
Jen Igartua is the CEO and co-founder of Go Nimbly, a revenue operations consultancy that's helped some of the fastest-growing SaaS companies like Twilio, Airtable, and Superhuman unlock millions in untapped revenue by breaking down silos between sales, marketing, and customer success. Since launching Go Nimbly in 2013, Jen has scaled the company into one of the top RevOps consultancies in North America, driving measurable impact for over 100 fast-growth SaaS companies and helping clients achieve revenue growth through operational alignment. Jen is a recognized RevOps thought leader and keynote speaker, frequently featured at SaaStr, Pavilion, and Women in Revenue events. She's also an active advocate for women in leadership and tech, known for her candid, data-driven insights on scaling teams, building customer-centric operations, and turning complexity into clarity.
What brought you to RevOps?
Oh, good question. Not to get like super meta, but I always knew I wanted to go into consulting. My mom worked at McKinsey for almost 40 years. And so it was kind of something that I always wanted to do, this idea of coming into a company, looking at a big, hairy problem, and being a person who solves it has always been something that's really interested me. RevOps specifically, I got my first job at a company called Blue Wolf, and they were Salesforce's biggest partner. So the entire company, hundreds of employees, were very focused on sales and Salesforce and the sales experience. And I got hired for their marketing automation team. And so very much top of funnel. What was a super frustrating experience, because I felt like I was like shouting from the rooftops for anyone to pay attention to marketing automation and lead scoring and lead handoff and anything like that, turned out to be a gift, because it taught me what it means to work across silos. That anything that I did top of funnel didn't matter if I didn't have the sales team along for the ride. If I wasn't thinking about unifying the tech stack, if I wasn't thinking about data silos, people silos, technology silos, whatever it might be. And I got very obsessed with this kind of idea of sales and marketing alignment. Why are these two teams that seem so aligned, right? They both want revenue. They both want more meetings. Why is it that they have the most friction? Like, shouldn't we all be mad at finance? Like, why are we mad at each other? And that became an obsession for me for a while. And it's how I started Go Nimbly. It was kind of that passion for kind of moments wherever you see the word handoff, really trying to understand why there's friction there. And it's probably causing you money, and it's probably causing you a bad customer experience and a bad internal experience. And fast forward a few years, I started Go Nimbly. And, we had the tagline, unify the business stack, because the word RevOps wasn't around.
Would that be the best definition of RevOps as it is today in 2025, or you can expand that and add more things?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the whole reason why revenue operations, the team, right, like why it needs to exist is because people are very good at organizing themselves vertically and really bad at organizing themselves horizontally. Like there's not usually misalignment between you and your boss because you're going to frankly fall in line. But there's usually misalignment across teams because there's misaligned incentives, or because there's sort of like maybe a culture of team mentality where it's like my team, or because we have a nomenclature issue across the board. Like there's all these reasons. And what I say is that there's internal bullshit, for lack of a better term, that gets in the way of the customer experience. And that's what revenue operations is supposed to do. We're supposed to work across these silos. We're supposed to protect that customer experience, and we're supposed to be, maximizing revenue at the end of the day. But the reason why RevOps came to be is because the premise is we don't want siloed operations teams. We don't want sales having sales ops and marketing having marketing ops and CS having CS ops, all rolling up to different leaders and not having that one view of the customer.
In my view, RevOps was a lot about kind of automation, but I think I'm mistaken. It's more than just automation, right?
I mean, automation is the outcome. It's a tool to do all this. But I think that there's many layers. I've seen it cut up in a bunch of different ways. Like there's definitely the technology automation piece. There's the insights piece. So like, how do you make sure that everybody's looking at the same numbers and the same insights? And then there's enablement. So how do we make sure that the field is enabled on all the processes that we come out with? And then there's the strategy bucket. How do we make sure that, ideally the CRO is looking for RevOps to say, hey, y'all, what are our biggest gaps? What are the bets that we have to make? And they're doing that together.
Folks, if you're enjoying the interview so far, I would appreciate if you spend a sec on like, comment, or subscribe to Belkins Podcast on the platform where you're watching this. I'm trying to get my show listed in the best podcast, and a couple of seconds of your time would really help me a lot to do that. Thank you so much, and let's get back to the interview. I don't remember who I talked to, but I still get this kind of echoing in my brain that the future of sales is kind of having a revenue team run by a CRO, and then there's no kind of sales and marketing kind of pulling in different directions, but having one team run by the CRO. Would you think it's a kind of a fair, nice future or it's not a application across the board for many companies?
I'm a little torn on this because I think that a typical CRO is going to have primarily a sales background. And that's great. I think that that's important. It's important to know how to sell products in order to be the chief revenue officer. But they're not typically marketers. There are a few. There's a few. If you look at Philippe Lacour, he's a CRO of Personio. He's a very interesting profile that has both been in FP&A and in sales and in marketing. And then I think you start to create the CRO that cares equally about all of it and can probably play that role. But that person is typically quite operational. And I wouldn't say that they're the same person that can rebrand a company. And that is typically the one that is, identifying, a new category and going after it. And so I don't know if there's a world where, maybe there is a CRO and then there's also a CMO. Maybe CMOs roll up to CROs. I don't know. I think it depends on the executive team. I wouldn't want to take away a C-level title and authority from marketing. I do believe that they're imperative for, ongoing demand. I think a CRO likely can take a company that already has a great brand and maximize it, but I don't think they're the ones that are creating that category.
What are the new areas that are added to under the RevOps and due to the recent kind of developments of the technology? Probably like with kind of an AI and where the APIs have bad integrations, like more products are talking to each other. It's kind of high
Yeah.
time for you guys, right? You're just kind of,
Yeah.
let's go.
I do think it's the golden age for revenue operations. I think that we have a lot of inner workings and a lot of trends working in our favor. So I think there's for sure AI being, honestly, I don't know if it's a trend as much as a catalyst for all of this. I think we have really high expectations from customers. Think we have really high expectations from executives. We have the pressure of profitability. We have a brand new tech stack for sure. There's also a pressure for sellers to have more time. I think there's an impatience for manual work now that I think AI has been the catalyst for. And for sure, I think we're primed for that. I do see a couple of things. I mean, it's happening in real time, so I don't know what to predict. For me, revenue operations should have AI as a focus and a skill set and a capability and be able to roll out the AI workflows to the go-to-market team. At the same time, I am seeing companies who will have a specific AIOps team. And I don't know, you can look at Canva, for example. OpenAI has one as well, as you can imagine. And, their role is to roll out AI processes and automations and workflows to the organization internally. And what's interesting about that is revenue operations is always very much focused on go-to-market teams, right? So they're not focused on the entire organization, where you could argue AI ops is focused at the entire organization. I don't see revenue operations, for example, figuring out a rollout strategy for the engineering team to use Cursor. Like, I just don't see that as a place where we'll spike because we don't understand that user. So, I think that there's a little bit of development about, I think every division is going to have AI as like essentially a tool in their toolbox, and they should figure out how to roll that out for the company at wide. But I do think that within revenue operations, there needs to be an emphasis on building. And that's another big thing that we're seeing is operators are back to building when we were buying every tool under the sun for years. And so now there's a capability that I think any RevOps team needs to have, which is AI operations. I don't know how it's going to work well with AI ops at the kind of company level at the same time, because I do think that's also necessary.
Kind of a dumb question, but what are the signals that organizations should start kind of building up the RevOps function? Is there any threshold in terms of the revenue, the client size, right? Because you've mentioned kind of an open AI. Obviously, it's kind of just the volume where they at, right? But when the business operates in the 10 to 20 million or 20 to 50 million area with AC, would you say mid-market? Like what other threshold signals?
I get asked this a lot, and I don't have all right answer yes to these questions and you need RevOps, but I can tell you a little bit about what we're seeing now. Now, keep in mind, we work primarily with mid-market to enterprise level companies, and they all need it. And so there's definitely a threshold. I would say 20 million and above, it's kind of a no-brainer. But there is that early stage where, frankly, when we started talking about this, RevOps is necessary to break down silos. If you have an organization that's 5 people, you're not breaking a lot of silos. Right. You don't need to have this sort of RevOps mindset that's more crafted and more deliberate. You probably should be breaking shit. Like a lot of times when early stage companies come to us, I'll say no because I'm like, we're going to build you to scale for something that you don't have scale. And my team is trained not to build stuff in production, not to break things, not to, to be more deliberate. And that's not what you need. And so there is a stage where I think it's too early. That said, VC companies are recommending RevOps earlier and earlier. And that person looks a little different at early stage. They're typically somebody who is midway through their career. They've been a technologist. They're pretty good. They're good technologists. And they want to move to a more strategic role. They're showing promise there. And they are sort of this, people call them a unicorn. I think they exist. They just only want to be in that role for a couple of years, or they're building and they're also kind of stepping up in that strategic space. That person does really well in a startup, where they are sort of, able to play the build and strategy role for a business. That said, this might be a hot take because I am an agency. I don't believe in outsourcing your RevOps team. Like, we don't do the RevOps as a service type of scenario because we want you to build it in-house. I do think this is a function that you should build internally because a really great revenue operator has insight into the business. They're on your all hands. They understand the strategy. They're sitting in office if you have one. They're getting really close relationships with the go-to-market leaders. They're very well trusted. And sure, that person can use an agency to create kind of more agility and more flexibility, but I don't believe in fully outsourcing it.
So within this kind of internal function of RevOps, how large this function should be to successfully operate and implement, right? Because when you tell me like, oh, build the function in-house, like, all right, do I have like just one RevOps ops and that's it? Or do I need to have a team, and what are the roles, as well as like what kind of budget should I give them? Like, because with sales and marketing, it's more obvious. You start like, it's acquisition budget, you know how to split it. You probably can go 50-50, 70-30. You just play around with it, see where it lands, right? But when you have this kind of new function that's coming in, I think like a lot of folks understand the value, and I kind of understand the value, although I don't have it within my business, but I'm trying to understand where I place it in the universe of my business, and then what kind of commitment should I expect from this function to be actually successful, not just one person that works functionally and trying to pull the string from all directions. And at the end of the day, can you measure, is there an impact, are they moving quickly enough? So what you can tell me kind of to just educate me,
I'm going to dodge the question really hard because the size of your team depends on your roadmap. So I need to know what you're at. What's your inflection point? What's the roadmap? What are the things that you're going to do? If you're telling me that you're coming in and you guys are launching brand new pricing and opening up a new segment and implementing CPQ, and you have everybody's been working on spreadsheets, so we're implementing a CRM, like I'm going to give you a much beefier team for that than if you told me, hey, we're doing really well. We have a sales team that's starting to sell. We just want to streamline what we've got and make sure that we have the right tooling and that it's all integrated. Those are two vastly different teams. And so I don't think it's a reflection of, hey, you have 100 sellers, therefore you have a 3-person team. It depends on what you want to get done and the inflection points that you're up against. That being said, typically what you're going to find early is that you're going to hire a business-minded person internally. That person that can create relationships, that is strategic, that is, able to define that roadmap, at least with support. And then you're going to find some outsourcing of the executional work. The only reason to hire internally for something that's executional is because you think you've got a career path, and it's kind of worth nurturing that person to continue to grow your team. If you're just going to have them, nonstop executing, it's probably not the right path.
Gotcha. What's one major thing that is happening in RevOps space right now that people are not talking about that much that they should be talking about more?
Oh man, I feel like everybody's talking. Okay, a couple of, I think, fun things that I'm looking forward to and a little bit scared. I think right now you've got really like fun players. Obviously, Clay's making a huge splash with their go-to-market engineering and building. You also have players that have been in the space for a while, like your Workatos and your Zapiers. And you've got folks that are excited about building agents, whether it's within Slack or obviously Agent Kit, has just come out. And so there's this propensity to build right now. But what we don't have is the operational guards or safeguards to figure out where that automation's happening. So it's something that I'm starting to feel, but I predict will be really bad, is this idea of workflow automation, like sprawl. And you're going to go into Salesforce and you're going to see a field change. You're going to be like, why did account status change? And I'm going to have no idea where it came from. It might be a Clay table. It might be a Slack, automation. It might be, Workato or Zapier or whatever it is. And it's very cool. We've democratized, an ability to build automation and build agents. But I've talked to a lot of folks that are like, oh yeah, we have like 400 agents that, are live and GPTs and whatever. And you're not using most of them, and now we don't know what's updating what.
Yeah. We have because HubSpot for me personally is like my hub, like my kind of Bible in a way. Like I need to make sure that everything there is like very top notch. We are like enterprise users. We have like lots of things happening there, right? I have like a marketing ops whose job is to make sure that actually her title is RevOps.
Great.
Yeah. So her job is literally just making sure that, as you said yourself, like each contact property is changed only when there's a need for it
Sure.
to change, and no one else is just playing around with whatever is happening there. And because of that, you just have a much cleaner process, right? But I guess that not many organizations are that mature, right? Like they just
Yeah.
allow, like you mentioned Clay.
Yeah.
Like I have a problem with Clay personally.
Okay.
And you know what
Hit
kind
me.
of problem I have? The problem I have is that it's a very compelling offer. Like, hey, you have this use case which will help you to generate leads, and then you build this workflow that will help you to find and reach da 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 da. And then people start looking at that use case. It's like, oh, this is great. I want to do that. And then they start thinking that the implementation of like the problem that I have with my marketing will be replaced, but there's several use cases that will be implemented. So instead of
Sure.
looking into solving a more fundamental problem, like my positioning, my messaging, like, do I actually understand my ICP that I tested? They're trying to bring in lots of different use cases because it gives you an immediate effect. Like,
Sure.
I'm in a appointment setting space, and like Clay was the first one who the disrupted the appointment setting space when they come in and say, hey, you can build these workflows that could generate you leads while you sleep.
Totally.
And I was like, yeah, right. And now you have lots of different agencies that are implementing the use cases that customers are using, but no one is doing anything about their marketing. And then over time, in 6-12 months, they stay with the use cases with the broken marketing, with the very kind of leaking funnel, and then they're like, okay, what's to do next? You see the point? Kind of like Clay is the catalyst of all of that, just because of the hype that it created around it.
I hear you on that. I think that it's no different than the disruption marketing automation had, 15 years ago, where, you can deploy bad marketing. The number of like nurture campaigns that went live with like no offers, after the third email, nobody opened an email, and still people just kind of continued to build these like kind of out of the box nurture campaigns. So I fully see that. Obviously, if you tell a human that there's a really easy out, they're just going to go try to do that easy out, and they're not going to do the hard work of positioning, etc. If used correctly, and I don't work at Clay, so whatever, but if used correctly, I think the power of a tool like that is that you're giving almost a growth marketing mindset to operators. And the idea should be that you now have an easier time testing multiple messaging. And it is a little bit what they're I don't know that I love this name, but they have this concept of go-to-market alpha, which is like you have to always be testing and changing, because anything that has been working will stop working. We know that. If you used to email me, 10 years ago and you were like, Jen, I saw you went to UNC, I'd be like, wow, they really know me. If you do that now, I'm immediately deleting. If you mention where I went to school, it's too easy. And so for sure, we have to be pushing the boundaries. That being said, I do think this concept of automation, workflow automation, there's a big enrichment use case as well, and normalization use case, and ability to deploy AI agents in a much easier way. That's here to stay. How you do it and how you architect it, I think the companies that are allowing it to be just sort of open to everybody are going to have that workflow automation sprawl I talked about. They're going to deal with issues like multiple agents talking to your customers that don't, that aren't integrated with each other, that have different voices and different messaging, maybe even say opposite things. And so I don't know, I just recently made a video about this, so it's fresh in my mind, but Intercom, for example, their product Fin, which is a support AI agent, they're now moving up funnel, and they're going to go do AI SDR type of workflow, which to me is a no-brainer, because it's like, okay, you are already using them for support. They already understand your company and knowledge, etc. How different is it to apply top of funnel, someone messaging and saying, can your product do XYZ? What is your pricing? I would rather it be one platform that is like talking, and I can build all the workflows, than two different ones that are probably talking to the same customer and they don't even know it. And so I think there's going to be a consolidation that happens here as well.
Yeah. So just to your point, I think then the bigger companies like HubSpot and Salesforce and Intercom, they kind of realized that they were missing that kind of, building more bridges and sort of like opening up to AI. And now probably they're going to be doing more and more of that, where would that leave Clay with sort of being like a Zapier that no one needs because everyone will be doing a direct integration?
Yeah, I think one of the actually, can you give me 1 second, Michael? I've got someone at the door, so it's
Of
distracting.
course.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you. Never mind. Okay,
We're not
where does
gonna
that?
cut this, by the way. So
What's that?
we're not gonna cut this, by the way.
Okay,
So
great. We'll just leave it. Everybody can hang out with us. Um, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's gonna happen in this
yeah,
space.
what do you think?
I do see like a few trends. I definitely see the trend of consolidation. Look at tools like Gong, right? Gong used to need outreach and Gong and Clary. Now Gong is probably winning out of those three. And folks are choosing a platform because they don't want multiple ones. I think that's going to happen in a workflow automation space. I do think that Clay has created a little bit of a moat around them, and I would still bet on them because they've managed to do a really great job with data consolidation. And I don't think these other tools are going to touch that. It's just like a really difficult business to get into. It's a low margin business. It's complex. It's I don't know, it's a nightmare in terms of legal. So I don't know. I think they've created a little bit of a moat because they're fearless on that front. And I also think that they've created a really, I mean, this is a category creation
Yes.
tactic, formalizing this role of a go-to-market engineer and creating this like massive amount of people that really love your product and you've got raving fans and are learning to build on it and are doing really cool interesting things will create a bit of a moat for you, especially in the like SMB to mid-market space. Once you get into enterprise, there's a lot more stability that needs to happen. There's a lot more like we'll just pick one and build on it. You'll find all these old school companies that only build on Salesforce. They're just
Right.
like, we don't even want to. We
Of
don't want
course.
anything new. We'll just build out. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
these older industries will probably just, it's good enough if there is something that does it close to, even if Clay innovates a lot, and they are. I
Yeah.
will say there's another thing that's really interesting. So they went out with intent signals.
Okay.
I'd be scared if I was an intent company. So now you've
Yeah.
got that. You can now email from the platform. They now have audiences, so you can do segmentation from Clay. And it starts to make me think, okay, where's marketing automation then? If you're building all these, imagine that they also create forms to capture. A lot of people use HubSpot to just capture
Right.
somebody's email, put them
Yes.
into a shitty nurture, like I mentioned, and send to Salesforce. Well, if we're starting to create an ability to capture from a form, which I did validate with Clay that like, is that coming? And I didn't get a hard yes, but I got a maybe you're onto something. If they capture, leads and they've got email capabilities, I don't know if I would do nurture campaigns from Clay, but they probably integrate. I do think for marketers, why wouldn't I have my events in Luma, my webinars in SQL, my newsletter in Substack, and then just have some sort of integration tool to send to Salesforce? I feel like marketing automation hasn't changed that much in 15 years. And I wonder if that's a bit of the disruption that will happen.
But is it not too many of the everything? Like, so you were telling me this, and I was like, yeah, but Clay is still like a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no like a yeah, like a fundamental thing street. It's like with the HubSpot, is like this is CRM. So at the end of the day, it's like
Sure.
whatever HubSpot is doing with their like the fancy things like breezes and the other, it's like a
Yep.
CRM. So now you
Right.
have a CRM and then you add more things on top of the CRM,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, but what is like Clay as its essence? Just an automation RevOps or like a just GTM tool, but
Yeah. It's an orchestration tool. Yeah, for sure.
orchestration, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you need to orchestrate it literally like a lot of, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's it's the flexibility that is both its power and the way that they lose people. You can do whatever you want in there, and it definitely competes with Zapier. Zapier's not going after, um, they're not going after data, I don't think, and so
no.
there's a little
Yeah.
bit of, there's a huge overlap. If I Venn diagrammed all these tools, there's
Yeah.
a huge amount of overlap in the middle and then things that they're each good at. And for sure, as an operator, you got to pick your tech stack. And I would rather have a tech stack that's a bit limiting that I'm maximizing than
Mm.
a bunch of tools that I'm half using. So I think that is one of the roles of a great, technologist, is to figure out the architecture and the tools and the must-haves and then kind of figure out what to play. That said, to your point about HubSpot as a CRM and you can build within it, I agree with you. I just also feel like marketers, don't live and love marketing automation. It's like it feels not as modern and not and a bit limiting. And I'm finding, I don't know if you're finding this, but like most events are now run on Luma. They used to run on like, here's a landing page and I submit to HubSpot and HubSpot sends the follow-up email and whatever and whatever. And we're like, you know what? I don't want to create 18 programs that send a follow-up email and have to customize it every time when I can go in Luma and very easily do text and email blasts, and folks have an integration with their calendar and it's all out of the box. And so I am finding that folks are wanting that modern, customer experience, and that's pulling them away from marketing automation.
Yeah. All right. I can debate on this topic for a long time, but I don't want everyone listening to just get bored of these guys. Can you move on?
I think this is really fun.
It is fun. Yeah. It is honestly very fun. And I think also like the space is changing. Like I've been around for 10 years and I am, I'm priding myself that we're using top-notch tools and we are very advanced in them. So we're not like, oh, we just have the tool and it's working. Like we're trying to kind of maximize our impact of it and being very good at it. Yes. And because of that, I'm like, sometimes when there's some guys like Clay come in and it's just a amazing use case and everyone's like, oh, we love that and there's so much hype, then I'm very suspicious about this. Like, all right. Because they talk to like, they talk to the biggest market, like 70% of the market are smaller companies, like 1 to 10, like 0 to 10. They're making like $150,000, $500,000. So they're maybe the customers. But when I'm going to a mature one, like for example, I'm a mature company with like tens of millions of dollars, with a professional sales team, marketing team, with like all this process being built with RevOps. Clay cannot offer me anything literally. They come in and they're like, we're going to do lead enrichments. So like we already have lead enrichments, right? Like we can do AI personalization. We have that. We can do, and you're like, yeah, the tools are talking. Oh, everything is integrated. Everything is scored, measured, qualified. What you can do. And they're like, yeah.
I respectfully disagree that large companies have it figured out. I make a lot of money with companies trying to figure this out, and Clay is killing it at enterprise. So they're doing something is resonating. And I think part of it is because the promise of AI is only built on clean data and clean architecture. And take Clay out of it, but there is a huge emphasis that executives are coming in being like, great, I need my data cleaned and I need it at a much higher fidelity. And so I think, whether it's Clay or something else, folks are saying, hey, just having one data provider isn't cutting it. I need to have multiple data providers. I need to figure out normalization programs. And we've built it all inside of Salesforce before. We've built a bunch of flows and a bunch of data dictionaries. We've built it with ZoomInfo as the core piece. We've built it with Clay. And so the tooling, pros and cons throughout all of it, but enterprise companies are saying, my data integrity can either be a competitive advantage or it's gonna, screw us and keep us from becoming modern. So there's just a lot of eyes on that.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. 100%. Like, I've 50% of the new customers we work with, they're in more kind of traditional, non-digital industries like manufacturing,
for sure,
digital constructions, financial services, like larger companies. And all their data sucks, right? Like literally, like they have a very, like they always come in and it's like, oh, we've got this list that we've purchased that is great list, and we look at the list and like it's terrible. It's terrible. It's not even like we cannot do anything with it. And they're like, well, but we paid so much on that, right? And then they're like, well, but we're also trying to reach you with ZoomInfo, and you're like, yeah, it's ZoomInfo. Maybe it's not the best, fullest data right now, right?
Yeah,
exactly. So you can do like, so they just, I agree with you. They're looking names like, oh, I have Apollo or I have ZoomInfo, and I'm just buying those and I'm plugging in and I'm trying to clean it up. So I think like you're right. Like we are looking at this more with more agility in a way. So we're like, that's not how it works. You're gonna do this and this and this and this and this. So probably Clay comes in and try to package that in a way that's simpler for people that have not much that experience. All right. So any topic that gets too much attention, in your opinion, that is not worth talking about in the RevOps space that you personally like, just forget about it, guys?
Such a good question. I'll take it a different way and just say that if you sit on LinkedIn, you're going to feel left behind. You're going to think that all these companies have it figured out and they have built so many agentic workflows that they now don't have to work a day in their life, and they were able to fire the whole marketing team and everything's just running. And I think that those examples are probably very tiny companies and they've automated 1 or 2 use cases, but that's not what we're seeing. And it's not that we're not seeing cool AI use cases working. We are. Support's one of those areas. Marketing is the biggest adopter of AI. Sales is right after. And, we have seen outbound AI SDR processes that work. All of these use cases are working, but it is not one of those things where we've now created this agentic workflow and it's good to go and it's done and nobody's looking at it. I think there's still a lot of work to go from specific use cases, which you can build. You can build an agentic workflow on top of whatever tooling that you want that does a specific action, and you can get it to work really well. The moment that you're trying to do an entire job, it's failing. And oh gosh, I'm gonna forget. Maybe I'll send it to you after, Michael. I'm terrible with names, but an economist spoke at the Gong conference that I thought was really riveting. And he talked about how the places where they know that AI is actually making an impact, they're recommending that you take a job and you break down all the tasks. And then you figure out the tasks and you decide whether or not they're actually options to have AI do that task, and breaking it down like that. And that you'll find that a big percentage is not, prime for AI. And you can think about when folks say that the SDR role is dead or the AE role is dead and sales is changing, for sure, updating CRM and research and prep for calls and follow up and all this and like creating the first draft of a deck or a pitch or a quote. Yes, absolutely. Those are prime for AI. But you can't replace, and I think business development is going to be more senior, you can't replace the advisory part of a sales cycle. And so breaking that down, I think, is something that maybe will get people a little more excited, because I think that the promise of like, I'm just going to kill this entire role, I don't think that's the trophy.
That's not. Like where you're telling me this, I was like, my marketing team, we use a lot of AI, but we're not using it in a traditional way where we wanted to replace my content team with like an AI copywriting, that the AI will be creating more content, and that's why I'm gonna trick the SEO game and organic. And by the way, just to put it out there, I spoke about this already on my LinkedIn, is we're killing it in the LLM space. So we're right now, as the company in lead generation, we're like here and all our competitors are like here, and we're like just growing, and we have every month more and more LLM traffic. And really the secret of that is
great content.
We create very deep, analytical, full of IP content that we spend a lot of time. I read every article we post as a subject matter expert, and I say like, okay, this is out of this 5, this 2, it's not the way how it works. We need to replace with this one. Go deeper. And I sort of like, and cycling through that content, you post it continuously. Then like AI is like, oh hell yeah, I do that. And a few examples that what my team is doing is like with AI, they we use Fireflies, and then we are analyzing all the sales scripts from each industry and sub-industry, and then all the pain points and the way we talk about the customer. And then my marketing team writes our landing pages based on a content that the prospects are talking about with the sales team. Instead of like before, like when you have a writer, you need to create a new landing page or new industry page. They need to just research and then think about themselves and then write some kind of average content. Now you can personalize it really deeply based on all the conversation that the team had. And then also, they're creating my avatars. Like, so literally they're feeding AI all my audio that I'm, they send me like a list of like 50 questions, and I'm spending like an hour answering those in the audio. And then within a year or 2 years, they have a library of my audio messages, my scripts, my blogs, all of that. And then they're creating drafts through that, or sort of like refining that, and we're posting that. So it's kind of a, as you pointed out, you break your job into different parts, and then you say like, okay, well, we're great at this, but we are spending so much time to validate this or research this, or just go back to the sales team and send them a questionnaire all the time. Can we automate all of that? So we are collecting that in real time, but then we are still writing it. So we are operating within our data, right? And I think like you're right. I think that's kind of the future, because at the end of the day, AI should be our tool and not our replacement. That's why when you mention like AI SDRs, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
I think that's a marketing positioning, exercise.
Mhm.
But I do worry about the fact that companies are not investing in an SDR role, or frankly, a lot of entry-level roles. We are
Yeah,
going to have an issue with anybody that graduated after 2019. They dealt with, their first few years of COVID completely remote. They never got that like quick, crash course in business.
yeah.
I am a big remote, like our company's remote. I am not preaching go back to work. But I will say that if I had a kid that I was mentoring, I would 100% say go in office, because the way that I learned was that I was sitting next to my boss and he would get up and be like, come with me, we're going to a meeting, take notes. And I got through osmosis to learn really quickly. And you can't do that, fully virtually. And so I worry about that, and specifically for SDRs. SDR was never a role that we expected people to stay in for a long time. Although I do know some folks that are like forever SDRs, and I love the SDR job. So I think that's like very cool. I think you can be a very senior SDR. But typically it's an 18-month graduation program into an AE. So if we're getting rid of that, how are we creating AEs? And, I think AEs are about to make a bunch more money and about to do really well because we're not
Yes.
nurturing any junior folks. I was speaking to Sean Kilpack at Gong, and he was saying, look, there's not real ROI in our SDR team at Gong. It's not
Mhm.
like they make us a bunch of money, but they are
Mhm.
the best AEs. There's the success rate of, hire a brand new AE versus you elevate an SDR is much higher. And so I do wonder, I think the big companies are going to
Yeah.
continue to nurture SDR just the same way like GE has a rotational program out of school that creates their executives. Same sort of thing. I think the big ones are going to, but young companies are not going to be able to. We're going to see a lot of poaching. We're going to see that role have huge salaries. So we'll see. It's
Mhm.
one to watch.
I look at SDRs and my SDRs, because it's kind of my business, as more
Yeah,
marketers. I
totally.
don't want them to be sellers, but I want them to be marketers. Like, I want
Love that.
SDRs to move from a kind of a sales function where they think about how many dials I make and what's the best my script and how do I use the negotiations, whatever solution selling, but rather like, how do I use marketing to build touch points, to nurture, and to sort of like identify the buying
Yeah.
intent, and just kind of, so in a way, like, how do I build audience? How do I package my offering? How do I
Yep.
integrate in the marketing? How do I do something with webinars, with
Yeah.
case studies, with benchmark reports, with kind of ads? How do I sort of like do more full funnel type
Yep.
of smarter campaigns? And how do I, using kind of AI and using my marketing, I can do it myself. So in a way, like, so you SDRs could be writers.
Mhm.
They could be kind of maybe designers sometimes, using all of that. They can
Yeah.
also kind of create a more sophisticated projects with marketing, right?
Yeah.
So they know how to. So that's kind of where I am at with SDRs. I like
Yeah.
them more in that direction, because I've trained a lot of my SDRs and BDRs, and as soon as they start thinking as a sales executives in terms of the quotas and
Mhm.
appointments, and like they start rushing through the market and just
Sure.
start dialing in, like just grasping for the conversion, like, oh, we just need to dial like
Right.
20 meetings this month and I don't care. Like this, the whole kind of predictable revenue, kind of top of the funnel building type of motion.
Yep.
And I was trying to build my business around this entire motion, but then what I've seen that over the years, you're really chasing the top of the funnel numbers, but they don't have a lot of buying intent, so your conversions are low. So that's why I
Sure.
probably kind of justify the conversion. But as soon as I moved to marketing, and as soon as I kind of like, hey guys, let's talk about the nurturing, let's talk about sort of like building the audience and
Very interesting.
signals, then they're like, makes sense.
Yeah.
And by the way, it works even for outsource SDR, to be honest with you,
Mm.
when you kind of deploy them. Obviously, you need to have marketing. So I think like marketing, what I was missing over the years is I was working with the customers that don't have that marketing function very well developed. And now we work with customers that invest a lot in their marketing. So SDRs come in as an additional powerhouse, for the
Sure.
marketing team. So now marketing team, like, oh, I'm throwing the webinar, and people showing up for the webinar,
Right.
they're up because you have someone who can actually
Totally.
get on the inbox, invite
Right.
people,
Yeah.
bring them in, sort of like extend invites, follow up, making sure that they kind of attended, and then
Yep.
they can look for the other webinars that they guys went to and then bring them in as well. So
Yeah.
they are more active, which
For sure.
marketing couldn't do that, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we saw a big hype around having SDRs roll up to marketing for a while. I think that like it just keeps kind of pendulum swinging, at companies. But I do think that a tight alignment with marketing at a minimum, so that you know what events are coming up, what the positioning is, how to talk to customers, how to not rush them, through the cycle, how to meet them where they are. I think that's really important. That being said, I do think the things that you're explaining about something having full funnel context and being a good writer and essentially having a point of view on what's
Yes.
going on is, again, a more senior skill set than someone right out of school. And
Yeah.
so your SDRs, I think, and I consider myself an SDR. Like a lot of the work that I do for my business, I love the top of funnel work. I love inviting people to events and dinners and
Right.
talking about their problems and that discovery piece. That's where I thrive. And so I consider myself an SDR, and I do think it's much easier when you're senior and when you have a senior title. And if you think about business development, the way that it was, 20 years ago, you've sent your executives. I'm a services company, but a service company would send their partners to events to go schmooze and start conversation and create business. And
Right.
then we made that a junior role.
Yes.
And that only worked when, you didn't have access to all the information about a company. But because users are going in and doing all of the research, there's nothing an SDR can do to help me in my business.
Yeah.
Not a junior kid out of school. He can help me schedule a meeting with an AE, basically. So I think
Yeah.
that very tactical role is gone. And I will say, if you are hiring SDRs and the way that you're describing them, I think people are sleeping on comedians. I think that is an SDR haven. They're very good writers.
Yes.
They're good marketers. They understand social media. They understand social selling. They've been booking. They've been booking shows. They've been like booking slots. They understand how to do that. And they don't make a lot of money, and they need it.
Yeah.
So I
But
don't know.
can they,
That's what I would do.
would they want to hit a phone and do some kind of dials every day? Would that
I think if they need money, they will take a job. If they have flexibility that they can go and still pursue comedy in other ways, I think it's there's an overlap. Not everybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to
Yeah.
want to hit the phones, but I think a
Yeah.
good portion of them.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you with regards to SDRs and account executives and the fact that we're not soon gonna have enough account executives because there's no SDRs for sure. I think like when I'm thinking about the SDR out of college, I would definitely place them with a sales team for basic communication and sales skills for sure. And then I'll put them on the inbound traffic and more working with qualifying and just kind of making sure that, the opportunity is vetted there. But then I would try to move them more into not be better at closing and the product and get on that phone, but rather like think about like where those people that we sell to, where they hang out.
Sure.
Like get those groups, get those communities,
Yeah.
get those people, kind of follow them, what they write about, like, engage, comment, build the audience, or like
Totally.
build your brand with that, like then start
Yeah.
creating your own point of view. And then through that sort of like bring the marketing. So, I
Yeah.
would probably move them that because I think like over time, they will just have a more healthier pipeline than just kind of rolling through that kind of sequence all the time, and then not going to have anything in the next few months if they're not calling.
Yeah, you mentioned knowing Morgan Ingram. He's a buddy of mine, but it's kind of what he's building a part of his company on. He's doing, I think he's launched it already, but he's basically doing social selling cohorts. And he'll do like a company-wide training on it, but he also does these cohorts where it's like, give me 6 of your SDRs that are committed, that want to do this, that want to learn how to be better sellers online. And
Yeah.
he'll teach them, and I don't know the exact content, but he'll teach them the skills that you're talking about. It's
Yeah.
like, how do you add value? How do you form an opinion? How do you engage, not just like send, 500 automated, pitch slaps via DMs.
Yeah.
And he's built a healthy business on that. So I think folks are seeing that
Yeah.
that is a thing that, oh man, I just so quickly delete any DM, any connection of anybody that like slightly sounds like they're about to sell to me. And we have our spidey sense on it is so good. Like I never fail to identify someone that's about to just send me a generic message,
Yeah.
asking me for a meeting, asking me for time.
Yeah.
And I think sellers need to be trained up on like
Yeah.
that's not working. Speaking of tactics that you can automate that don't work, that's one
Yeah.
of them.
But then right? If you have someone engaging with you in the comment section and write 2, 3, 4 very good comments with a nice opinion, and you engage with them, you remember those guys. So if someone will hit the inbox with a nice message, you're probably going to respond and say, hey,
for sure.
I'm interested, not interested, right? But as long as they not just go and straight pitch you in their DMs without, being there. So
and they've done the research and they know why. And if they've engaged with my posts, they probably know what I'm thinking about, and they can probably reference that in a good way.
Yeah.
Do I also see them, flip to a pitch? And if I'm not interested, do I say no? For sure. But I'm way more likely to answer.
Yeah. Talk to me about the RevFest 2025 conference you guys did. First, was it successful in your opinion?
Super. Yeah, we're doing it again next year. Yeah.
What's the most difficult? What was the most difficult in kind of lifting the event like this off the ground?
Well, I think it's deciding to do it. I think it's taking a big bet. I think, I had moments of doubt, like, who the hell do I think I am, that I think I can bring hundreds of people together for an event. Like, I definitely had imposter syndrome about something like this. And I think the other thing, the thing that got me through that is having a really strong point of view. Like, why you? Why this event? Why would people want to join? Do you have something to say? Do you have the right, people, the right connections? And all of that was feeling like a yes. And, I think the funny thing is we're starting to plan 2026. I spent all of last year planning for RevFest, which happened in June of this year, just completely scared the entire time. Like, I was having night sweats. I was like freaking out. Every few months I'd be like, I'm just, why am I doing this? I should quit. Like, who the hell do I think I am? This is going to fail. I would just have like really big panics. And I had enough people in my life and enough coaches that were like, all right, like, let's kind of get through it. And it was incredible. And now I'm coming to RevFest 2026 with like the knowledge that I can do it. And I'm like very excited. I'm excited I can take bigger bets. But that first one, you have to take a big bet on yourself that you could do something, worth going to.
And what are the major learnings for the next year from this one that you kind of really hits with you?
Yeah. Big things we did is practitioners on stage. I'll do that again. So we put people on stage that have done the job, that are basically mid-market to enterprise level revenue operators, that have something to share, that are doing something compelling, that have solved a big problem or are solving a big problem and want to talk about it, have strong opinions. And I think we nailed that. People left inspired by the content. The other thing that we did, which we're going to do again, is we put the conference in a very unique space. We did it at a gay nightclub in New York City called House of Yes. And I think what that did is it created a juxtaposition, right? It's like a space you don't typically, almost everybody was coming in being like, I've never been sober at House of Yes. So it was like definitely like, people let their guard down. It was fun. We leaned into it. But that only works if you nail the content. Like, if the juxtaposition of fun and silly and wild is met with really incredible people that are teaching you something, and that, it's still a work conference. So I think we really nailed that. And there were logistical things, like we got really good scores, like a 4.95 from our attendees out of 5 for coming back again next year, and feedback. And the feedback we mainly got was that it was a bit crowded, that we ran out of coffee, like stuff that, we're just new to the event space. In my defense, I did tell them, please don't run out of coffee, but they said to us, they were like, we're not used to business conferences. You guys guzzled coffee. And I was like, yeah. So, the space just wasn't set up for it. But we're going to fix that next year. We're going to a bigger nightclub. We are going to have plenty of coffee stations.
Yeah.
And, we just didn't expect the turnout. We had let me do the math, over 90% showed up.
Yeah. So what, that like several hundred people?
Yeah. Couple hundred. Yeah. So we were maxing it out. I was told by everybody that about 20 to 25% of people won't show up. And so I was expecting like 40 less people than showed up. So it's definitely tight. But you know what? We got through it.
You want to double next year or triple next year?
Not quite. I think we're going to go 300 to 350. A little less than double.
You still wanted to kind of keep vetting the attendees, like make sure that only kind of decision makers are through the door, so you don't have lots of sellers and
Totally. This is a thing that really sucks about running an event. We declined like 100 people from going last year. And they're not happy when you do that. People were not happy with me. I tried to DM everybody and apologize. But ultimately, the reason why I think the event did really well is because people were with their peers. And you have the same kind of problems and you're speaking the same language. And if I have a bunch of sellers and a bunch of fractional, folks and people at small companies, you just don't, that's not who you're wanting to network with at the time. And so we're going to be ruthless about it again. And it's going to suck again. I got some not very nice DMs from people being upset that, and they're trying to spend good money. They're trying to give me $500 to come and I'm saying, no, thank you. And so it is a very awkward thing, but it's also like a really important part of it having value for the folks that are there.
Yeah, I think that's right playbook. Like I remember I've been, for like dozen of different conferences, and Nathan Latka's Founder 500 in Austin was the best one because it was kind of behind closed doors.
Tell me how many women were there?
I don't know.
Not many.
Yeah, but I'm kind of blind in terms of like I just don't I don't see it.
Sorry,
but
I have an issue with founder events. There are female founders, I promise you. And every time I step into one of those events, I'm like 3 out of 100. But it's curated. It's the same sort of idea.
It's very
you can
curated.
only go in the room if you are this persona. And we'll do it again, and we'll see how mad people get. And, eventually you can have a giant conference where you have tracks and maybe there's like a, small track and a large business track. But I mean, I'm not altruistic here.
Yeah.
These are the people I sell to, right? That I want in the room.
Yeah. Did you do Lush in Finland? Have you been to Slush? Oh, you should check it out.
Yeah? Tell me about it.
They have one of the best. It's the most entertaining conference I've been to over the major ones, because what they do is they're the only one that close the venue and everyone hanging out in the venue. So they don't change the venues after party, right? They the same venue, and they do like a lot of like crazy karaoke's and a treasure hunt. And you had people kind of taking meetings, and then now you have like 200 people singing some kind of you have like Indians singing Indians, and then you have like American doing like this one, and then Italians, and then just kind of all together. It's really fun.
Rad.
It's like just
yeah, it's a similar vibe of what we're going for. We're gonna do, I think, don't quote me on this because we haven't figured it out yet, but I want to do live band karaoke because I find that so fun. And I also last year we had comedians on stage. We had like an MC, Kevin White, who was incredible, who did the whole kind of, and made it feel like a show instead of a conference, which I really love, and we're gonna keep that.
Yeah.
But we're thinking about maybe doing a game show. I really love games, so I make board games, and it's a passion of mine. And that's something I've also learned is like, do the stuff you love because you know how to do that. Like, I'm not going to do, I don't know, like, I don't love sports. So I'm not going to have a sports thing because I don't even know how to do that. I don't know how to make that fun. But I love board games. I love game shows. I've been obsessed with it my whole life. And so how do I bring the stuff that I'm passionate about? It'll show through.
Yeah. Board games are great. I think they're just collaboration aspect of it, just getting people talking and hanging out and just opening up. I think it's great. Yeah. Like honestly, like the two things that are, for me personally, I hate in the conferences, especially in the major ones. I don't like panels. I hate panels.
Same.
They're the
panels.
worst.
Did you? You're like reading my mind. So we banned
have like
panels.
four people on the stage from different background, talking about the AI, and you're like, oh my god, won't you blow my head off, right? It's just so, and then no one's talking anything concrete. You start 10 minutes opening up, and then 10 minutes like someone tell you like this is the worst, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. And then also when you don't have any like the booth and stand thing.
Yeah.
I think it's an old playbook. Like people don't want to come into the booth as that much in a way, but they need to have another environment when they can hang out and talk.
Agreed.
And I don't know, like speed dating. Again, also, so I like how you wrote that you had like curated meetings.
Yeah.
I think it's smart. I think like you can spend some time and people can get a profile on people, what they want to discuss, what the other things, and try to match them somehow more intrusively in a way. But people will say you'll thank you after that. So
yeah, we tried to do intros, and then we have no booths. Our sponsors have to like build an activation. So you can have a section where you're doing headshots. Awesome. We had folks, I mean, next year we want to do a whole like beauty bar kind of area and just sort of play with. Again, I have a background in games, and we do a lot of game conferences, and game conferences are really fun, and it's all adults. It's not kids. So how do you take the magic of that where people are excited to go to booths? Again, it's games, and you want to buy stuff, and buying stuff feels good. But it's like you go in because you're like excited, and the people at those booths are excited. They're not, again, not to shit on SDRs, but I hate how people will spend $50,000 at a conference and then send their 2 junior SDRs who are eating sandwiches and on their phone. And so it's like, how do we make sure that like, create an activation and jersey match? I want to see directors of RevOps from my sponsors at the event because they're going to talk. And they're going to, and I would love to talk to the head of RevOps at companies that I want to buy. Not necessarily an SDR.
Yeah. I've done conferences where I was like doing demo and presenting and talking. And I love kind of just going there and just speaking with my personal kind of entrepreneurship experience to folks. But what I usually ended up doing is having like 10 students or 10 like startuppers explaining this to them, right? And you're like, oh my God, you just spent educating the youth, right? So awesome. Well, listen, congratulations. I'm happy for you. It's a big jump.
Excited.
It's like, I understand how concerning is that, especially the company that's not like as large as yourself, right? Like it's one thing if Clay is doing that, right? It's just, but kind of doing that and checking. But your event definitely standing out.
Thank you.
I think you're doing great. And I love the fact that you're approaching it from the more creative standpoint and not doing what the other, what it's usually people are doing.
Yeah.
So
it's more fun that way.
It is more fun. Yeah. All right. I wanted to spend the rest of the time tapping into you as the fellow agency peer.
Cool.
So you built Go Nimbly by yourself, or you have other partners?
I have a business partner. His name's Troy.
But then I've noticed that Go Nimbly is from 2013 and you joined in 2015. Was the company like 2 years before you joined? Or?
Kind of. It was a little glorified contracting for a while. So me and Troy met back at Blue Wolf. And Blue Wolf, again, was a big agency, hundreds of people. And so Troy left first, and he was doing actually totally different. He was doing basically app exchange products and really building. He's an engineer. And then I followed suit and quit. I actually, I don't put it on there, but I started a company called Divided Sky. And that is a Fish reference for the band Fish, that if anybody knows it. And I started doing the same thing. I was just contracting for a little bit. And then we decided to merge together and create Go Nimbly.
So, did you kind of decided from 2015 to take it seriously as kind of a business and start growing? Yeah.
At that point, it was like employees and contracts and not just us doing the work. So it really had a turning point there of saying, okay, let's build an agency. Because I actually for a while, and this is something anybody that's starting out is going to have to decide, and you don't have to know right away. It might even be decided for you. But there'll be a crossroads where you have to say, okay, am I building a large company here? Or do I want to keep this at like 10 to 20 people where we just like, we maximize on what we can do and that's it. I'm not trying to build a huge headcount company. We kept going back and forth for a few years on what avenue to take, and then just fully committed. I'd say around 2021, 22 maybe. We were like, no, let's just like build a real agency here. And we got obsessed with, what does it mean to run a professional services firm? Because a lot of it is nerdy. I read a book called Managing a Professional Services Firm, which is as dry as it sounds. Do you have it?
I have it. I actually, this is one of the books that I advise. It's like a law firm, right? Like how to write. Yeah. It's
for
great.
Sure.
And you'll read like 10 pages, 100 pages, you're like, oh shit. It's like they just exactly tell you what to do, right?
It was very eye-opening for me. I also read The Boutique and a few others, and there's a lot of literature about how to build an agency. And we had to make a choice that we were going to build a big team. And that is a lot more operational than it sounds. It's staffing and assignment and bill rates and contracts and, how to build a consultative selling function, because especially in services, it's really hard to sell because customers are very skeptical when they come. I can't demo you exactly what I'll do. And so at that point, we really pivoted. 2022 was a rough year. It was like COVID. We lost a bunch of customers, great resignation. And then 23, we like kicked it up a notch and started to do really well. 24 was killer. This year's killer. And we're about to hire our 100th person next week.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's big for the agency.
Yeah.
So you said like the only rough time for you was like 2022?
I mean, the beginning, of course, right? Like I remember crying because I couldn't figure out quarterly taxes and, incorporating and S Corp, C Corp, whatever. But we're past that stage. Those were like just like rough years of learning a lot. And also every time a customer's mad, you don't know how to deal with it. It feels very personal. You're doing the work and trying to sell the work. It's like feast or famine. That's sort of the early years. And then in 2020, our biggest customer was Caesars Entertainment, the casino. And they called us like on a Tuesday. And they were like, hey, we got to pull the team. And we're like, what? And they're like, yeah, we're closing our doors on Monday. And, we had an early indication that COVID was bad because I was like, if the casino is closing its doors, you got a problem. And they were basically, said, we're not going to pay and you can take us to court. It's like, well, I'm not going to go Nimbly versus Caesars. And so, I just kind of had to be like, all right, like, got it. Let's pivot and move past this. And we started off, don't quote me on these numbers because I don't remember exactly, but pre-COVID, I think we were in the like high 30s, 40s. We were sort of like stagnating there, which is a typical place for an agency to kind of stagnate. I think it's like a team that one executive can manage. And then beyond that, you really have to scale out. And so we were hitting that. We ended kind of post-COVID in like the 20s. So we really downsized. And then great resignation was not good to us. Tech was poaching from our team like crazy. These insane salaries. They have since normalized, but for a while people were making insane money. It took until a year later to, see the work of going back to basics come to fruition and really work for us.
Yeah. So your co-founder, he has an engineering background.
Yeah.
Did you think about pivoting to a product and just doing the product line? You're in SaaS all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I just wondering, why did you
Totally.
stay at the professional services? It's one of the toughest businesses to be at, especially in the marketing RevOps. Like, you're the first one to go, right? Everyone is very skeptical. There's lots of competition, very volatility out there, right? Just people are changing their minds and the budgets are cut all the time. So
Sure. Yes, we have tried to build product and we've built some internal automations for sure. But funny enough, me and Troy made a commitment that it was like, we actually love running an agency. We have a passion for professional services. It is a type of business that has been alive and well for hundreds of years. And if done right, you can make incredible impact and you can have a really strong brand. And look at your McKinseys and IBMs and, I think IBM's struggling a little bit, but they're solid. And I look up to those companies and I do want to create really incredible talent. Is it hard? It's a different kind of hard, for sure. But if done correctly, like we do long-term contracts with our customers, we have gone to you read the book, but we've gone through the basics of figuring out what it is that we're great at and doing that work and making sure that we're not, like when we're making a bet and when we're upskilling, that we're really thoughtful about that. We're hiring the right talent, we're investing in it. And what we were doing in the early days was just taking anything that we could and frankly not doing great at it. And so we've gotten a passion for it. In terms of the volatility, for sure, budgets get cut, but actually RevOps, I think, is in a pretty strong place because we're making the go-to-market team more successful. Hire us instead of 5 more sellers and let's figure out how to increase carry capacity. And so I think we're positioned in a good place right now. Not to say that I don't lose sleep over macroeconomic trends. It's very scary time right now, and I for sure worry about it. But and I do want to go into other industries. I want to go into industries that look up to SaaS because I am, it's econ 101 diversification. Like I'm definitely have a really big pillar in SaaS, but I'm finding that insurance, looks up to SaaS. We've got a pretty good space in fintech. We've done really well. The AI companies, which I think are SaaS adjacent, but AI companies, we've got a couple of them. And so I need to figure out the places. I don't think it's manufacturing. I think that's like a little bit of a very different beast, but I think there's lookalike industries I need to go after.
Yeah, you would want to work with manufacturing. They're great.
I
They're
would,
just becoming to
for
implementing like
sure.
CRMs, and the kind of
Yeah.
automations and the volumes and stuff, and just thinking about the nurturing and the marketing.
I would
Yeah,
love to win that space. I mean, it's funny. I make games, so I like work in a lot of manufacturing.
right.
Like I work with
Yeah,
those companies.
yeah,
They make our game, and so they are very old. Like I will send
yeah,
sometimes a Dropbox file, and they're confused. And so for sure, it's an industry that we could disrupt. But I have such an easy time selling into SaaS because I can just flash up my
yeah.
logos and go, "We know your
Right.
industry." I would have to understand more about, I don't know, even as
100%.
simple as managing your inventory. Inventory management is a beast, and I would need to hire
Yeah, sure.
I would
That's
need
a
to
different.
hire
Yeah,
a skill set to go
that's
into
fair.
that.
That's
Yeah.
fair. Right. Can we help me understand your volume? Like, are you in the hundreds of customers or below 100 right now with
We
your
have
size?
more, but for a very specific reason. So we have our core like business that is enterprise, mid-market to enterprise, and we do large scale projects, say a big
Mhm,
CPQ implementation, or
mhm.
we have our fractional RevOps, which is basically a monthly retainer, but we're working to deploy change into your organization. And that is less than 100, typically less than 50 is what we'll play in that space. And then I have a high velocity business with our Gong and Clay partnership where we're doing a lot of, I don't know, call it 1 to 3 month
Right.
implementation projects where it's very
Mm,
high volume. And we'll do 100, like we've done 600 Gong implementations in the last like
oh,
year and a
wow.
half. And
Yeah.
so on that front,
Mm,
it's a lot, but we're talking 10K a pop. So it's not
yeah.
where our customers spend six figures, like our core customers will spend six
Yeah.
figures in a given year.
Have you been on a sort of like a crossroad about kind of choosing which route you're gonna go in terms of your business model or in terms of how you're gonna make money? Like you've mentioned, like implementing Gong and other
Mm,
partners. It's smart. I didn't do that, by the way. I've
mm,
decided to go with a more service base,
sure.
and then at some time you're like, oh shit, I should be more kind of building my offering on top of the solutions of the others. It just make more sense because you can then get all leads
You
and
have a
then the brand
pipeline for sure.
exposure and the pipeline and the
Yeah,
commission and just getting all of that and not just do the heavy lifting
right.
yourself, right? So what was the sort of like you went in the direction where you say like you do a project-based work and
hmm
more like a bigger project, and then you do a one-off sort of like implementation. So
Yep.
that's kind of the business, right?
Yeah, and then a retainer business, which
The
is
retainer, like
yeah,
the yeah,
yeah.
gotcha. Makes sense.
So, were we at a crossroads? I definitely look for kind of 1 + 1 = 3, spaces. Like
Sure.
the reason why we bet on Gong is because we think they're gonna win. And all of our core customers are essentially using Gong. Am I turning down outreach and sales loft and Clary work? No. Our customers have their tech stack. We're gonna, help them. But the partnership that I'm investing in is one where I think, they're the winners. And my hope is not that I do a bunch more Gong implementations, is that those Gong customers that come to us and we implement Gong, that we can convert them to our longer term, customers. And we're
Yeah.
starting
Right.
to do that
Yeah.
very hard actually, because when they get introduced to Go Nimbly, an AE will be like, here's Go Nimbly. They're your Gong implementation partner. And then we have to come in and go, yes, 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 yes. And
But
also we're a strategic RevOps partner. And that's hard. It's hard to change
yeah,
their mindset from like a tactical implementation partner to bigger.
yeah,
We have to put a lot of calories in to,
yeah.
elevate that.
Yeah, yeah. And then, so in terms of acquisition, I saw you've done lots of dinners. You've organized
Sure.
your dinners, and then
Yeah.
I think like that was successful. And then you
hmm
say, okay, what can we do more than dinners? Let's do the conference. So that was
hmm
kind of the strategic next step, right?
That and we do a lot of private roundtables. I just don't post about it.
Private roundtables,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of the main acquisition strategy for you that
It
been
would be,
successful to get those
yeah.
upper mid market, right?
Yeah. And then it's a lot of referrals. We're very lucky.
How do you budget that? How much do you need to spend, and what's the percentage in terms of the pipeline that you need to get to have a good benchmark? You have a number?
What a great question. I do not have the answer to. No, we're not
So like,
mature enough for that.
yeah.
It's more it's honestly more what we're capable of doing. I'm capable of doing 1 to 2 dinners a month. Like there's no amping that up to 4 right now, because the way that we're doing RevOps Supper Club is that it's a club. It's very
Mhm,
personal. We do it in our
mhm.
homes. And
No.
so, it's basically like, hey, I'm inviting you into my space. I'm getting a chef. It's very curated. It's not like I can say, all right, and we're doing them all over the country but Jen's not going to be there. You're going to be at somebody else's house. Like it just doesn't, not for the vision that we have for this particular
Yeah.
thing. I'll do other dinners, but they're not branded as supper club.
Yeah. And then, so you sort of like organize it and you have a certain like topic that you're going to be discussing, or like at the end of the day, like there should be still kind of business purpose to this, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's definitely supposed to be a good hang, and we do care about that. The premise being, I actually only invite people that I know or have been vouched for. So you have to have somebody like nominate you to come, and the
like
guiding light is,
membership.
of course, you're in RevOps and you're good at your job, and also if I put you and sat you down with dinner, you're not we've all been sat next to somebody where we've been like, oh God, we're trying to avoid that at all costs. And I'm sorry if that's you. And so we've done a really good job of that. And the topic itself, I typically have something that I have in the back of my mind that I think is like, all right, there's a trend going on or something that I'm watching out for. And I keep that in my back pocket, but I let everybody introduce themselves and basically say, what's top of mind for you? And if I hear the same thing a few times, I'll pivot and just be like, sounds like we're all worried about X. So like, let's talk about that. Who's got and I moderate and I try to do one
Moderate,
conversation.
right?
At dessert, I let everybody, whatever, you can talk to the person next to you. We can sort of
Yeah.
like let it go.
Well, that's why, because you're great at board games, so you kind of
Yeah,
understand how to moderate. Because like the 50% of the hanging out in the board game is like the moderation. If the
totally.
moderator is great, then you have so much fun, right?
Yeah.
Just so, yeah, that's cool. What else you are doing besides the kind of the dinners and party for your acquisition at the
Yeah.
mid-market enterprise for
You
SaaS?
know, I'm tired because of it, but we're doing a ton of just going to events. And so I'm getting on planes and I'm going to all the industry events and I'm schmoozing and showing up and speaking and doing all of that. And part of that is, somebody's got to see you 3-4 times and then they'll go, oh, okay, I might have a project for you. So there's a lot of schmoozing there. And
Yeah.
then another big tactic for us is just spending time on site with our customers, talking to our customers. Our customers will move on to other customers and they also have their network, and just making sure
Yeah.
that we're doing incredible work is table stakes. Like you gotta have incredible people and do incredible work, and that gets you on the map. And then on top of that, it's basically the experience. So it's like, can we make Go Nimbly something that when you're part of, we open doors, that I introduce you to other people, that I help you make, quicker decisions. I've interviewed my customers' RevOps teams before. I've done demos, if they're in the RevTech space, I've given my feedback and I've done LinkedIn posts for them, just as a being part of our customers. It's like, how do I also elevate the experience of working with Go Nimbly so that you're working not with just great consultants, but with a brand that has your back?
Yeah, that's great. Um, you obviously are great at social content and social selling, but any other content? Like, I didn't see a lot of like blog research,
No.
use cases, all of that. Why not? Is that like not your cup of tea? That's why it's kind of just doesn't make sense, or?
No, it's not necessarily. I would love for us to elevate our game on more kind of space and benchmarks and trends, etc. I'm doing it through speaking gigs, but I'm not digitizing it right now. And it's not, sometimes it's just you got to make bets, and I'm betting on in person right now over content.
Right. Yeah.
And then the other thing is I'm betting on social instead of like blogs, and I'll get a bit more of a flywheel going and make sure that we're creating better content. But part of it is I had a theory that right now people are much more into what would I call it? Like the opinion economy. For a long
Mhm.
time, it was all benchmarks all day. And I think we realized that,
Right.
like, all right, a lot of these are made up. A lot of them
Yeah.
are survey based. And I think there was a little bit of like a pullback in our customers for that.
Yeah.
And, I'm really pushing on trends, what's going on. Again, I do these private roundtables where we're bringing, stories and ideas and things to our customers. I need to
Mm.
figure out how to move on to the next level. The one interesting thing that I deployed, this is not really a go-to-market thing, but I think it will fix some of this problem. I deployed an internal podcast.
Mhm.
My boyfriend made fun of me for this, for sure. He is definitely a bit of a curmudgeon when it comes to executives and CEOs, and it's funny that he's dating me, but he's like, no one's gonna want to listen to that. Like, what are you doing? Like, just patting yourself on the back. And I was like, no, stay with me. I'm doing an internal podcast where I'm talking about trends, talking about the history of the company. I'm interviewing consultants about their work, so I'm capturing customer stories. I'm talking about strategic decisions that the company's making, and I'm deploying an episode a week. And do I expect everybody to listen to every episode? Absolutely not. I'll make playlists. I'll make like onboarding playlists. If you're going to sell, I'll make you a customer. And I'm hoping that those are things that we're going to then use to create like the beginnings of content, because I'm so much better at just like talking at something. And then this is like every executive ever. I'll just like tell you about what I know, and then we can turn that into content. And what I think we've been doing that has made it really like a slog is we're starting with like, all right, let's write this like, I don't know, one pager and put it in here and try, as opposed to talking stories and then figuring out, afterwards how they fit into some content. So 2026 will be a year where you'll see more of us there.
Yeah. I like we're talking about kind of RevOps and especially in the course of the AI, like really kind of opening up more use cases and more client work makes sense. Like I would
For
love
sure.
to see more kind of nitty-gritty things and
Yeah.
like but like really like reporting from the front line type of thing, not
Totally.
just kind of the copywriter doing the work, but actually kind of getting deeper into like why we're fixing this or that and how we're
Yeah.
doing that and what the result of it and how it looks like, just screenshot from CRM, whatever, some of those things. I
Yeah.
think it's kind of important.
Yeah. I have a newsletter that I'm starting to write that is supposed to be that, like
Yeah.
interview one person deeply.
Yeah.
I'm calling it RevOps. Kind of the idea being like, you gotta mess up a bunch of times before you figure it out. And it's a trial and error. It's trying new things. The hard part is like getting into a level of detail while it's still engaging. But yeah, I really want to give just like, how did you do it? Answer that question. Like, how would I actually implement this? Not just you were able to do XYZ, isn't that wonderful? But getting into the details.
I also have my newsletter, but it's my vent out thing. So I've literally talk about building the agency.
Cool.
And I'm like, each edition is like 20 minutes long. So I literally just, it's not even fitting in one email.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of blogging about it, but it takes commitment to write them like yourself all the time without kind of help of kind of editor or an AI, it's just kind of take a huge part of the, right. Okay. Awesome. I think like the last question that I have, and I'm going to let you go. Talk to me about your creative process. Like, especially what part is that your own creativity versus you're just, trying to get inspired by other people versus just getting inside your head and just kind of creating that versus your AI or team helping. Like any insights, any fresh perspective you can give me that could help my creative process would be great.
Oh man, I know as somebody who is innovating on technology, 0% AI. I actually banned AI art at Go Nimbly. I think we should use artists, and I think that we should, really harness that in ourselves. It's such a beautiful. I'm not a religious person, but I do think creativity is like part of spirituality and figuring out what you love to do and how you want to share it with the world. So I find it, not to get too hippy dippy. I do consider myself a hippie in a lot of ways. I think it's important to protect that process. The best advice that I got, and my boyfriend's a comedian. The best advice that I got is to follow the fun. Do the stuff that you love. And amp that up. And so when I told you this a little bit, but when I tried to make my own podcast and I recorded 10 episodes and I just hated it. I was doing the formula. I was having you on and saying, hey, tell me about your career. Amazing. Where else did you go after that? So cool. What's a tool that you're really interested right now? And what's a book that you recommend to everybody? And it was like the same thing that everybody else has done. And I listened to a few of them and I hated it. And I got advice from my boyfriend, Kevin. He was like, well, what do you like? And I was like, well, I like Jon Stewart. And I like, people that do news and have opinions and that it's fun to watch and that they push the boundaries and they play with that. And he's like, great, let's do that. And that's how This Week in SaaS came to be. And it's because I love it. And it comes through. I really enjoy doing it. So I think that's part of it. And then in the nitty gritty of like, what is the process? Like, what does it take to make a video? It's pretty simple. I find a news article that is interesting to me. I keep up with it, so that isn't extra work. It's just like something that came. Sometimes it's just scrolling on LinkedIn and being like, ooh, that's fun. Someone got acquired. Someone put out a feature that I think is disruptive, whatever it is. And then I'll write the first draft, and I'll probably spend an hour just sort of like saying what my opinion is, making sure I have a thesis to the whole thing, and I just sort of write it. I send it over. Again, my boyfriend's a comedian. He punches it up. He makes a bunch of jokes that I have to pull back on because he'll make like a bunch of blowjob jokes, and I have to be like, I can't say that on LinkedIn. And then we pull it back. Some of them slip through, and you'll know when it's Kevin. And then we sort of tighten it up. I have a friend, his name's Tucker Brookshire. He comes over to my apartment, and then we film for like an hour. He takes the SD card, and then he does the edits. We'll do a round of feedback, and we're good to go. So that has become like, it took, 3 to 4 months of figuring out, but that's become, it's like, that does not feel like a brand new creative process. Yeah. That has a vision, it's got a story, it's got a game, and it works.
Yeah. But then obviously you put that in your calendar, you dedicate time, like you have like half of the day for that, or like whatever hours, and just kind of.
Man, Michael, you're so much more efficient than me. No, I'll text Tucker, hey man, I got a story, when can you come over? And then he'll be like, I don't know, Friday, awesome, Friday morning, great. And then I have that's my deadline. And then probably the night before, I'm like, all right, let's write it. And that's it. And for RevOps Rants, the other series I write it on the way, because I have it built at the Clay office. They let me build my desk there.
Right.
I write it on the way in the subway. And the reason why it works is because it's visceral. Like, this is stuff I already care about. I've already been mulling over it in my brain forever.
Yeah. That's so cool. Listen, I'm happy that you found your medium
Thank you.
You're happy about. I mean, podcast could be your medium. Like, for me personally, I never ask the question that I'm not personally curious about.
Right.
I don't give I don't care about like if I don't ask the right question.
Yeah.
So I spend, let's say, 3 hours, and I literally go and then study everything you've done.
Yeah.
I watch probably like 10 of your interviews and like posts and all of that. And then I just start and just pulling, all right, what I wanted to talk about, what I'm like fancy to talk about today specifically, like even today, what my mood is at, what I feel kind of like I can get from you, what I'm curious personally. And then I just kind of build up the conversation, and then you see like, okay, well, we can go there, we don't gotta go there. And then at the end of the day, you hope that, people listening to this would also have fun and inspired. If not, then I enjoyed it. So I'm not making money from podcasts as well. I'm just I'm just spending money, but I'm doing that for my own enjoyment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I think if it's that commitment. It's a lot of, I think you're doing it right, doing the deep research, but most people don't do that. And then you show up at a very surface level podcast conversation. So like, congratulations. And you can tell that, hey, you knew me during this. I did feel like you had done the research and set me up to have deeper conversations. I'm just not ready. I'm not sure I'm ready for that like level of commitment.
Yeah, well, that's why I really appreciate you taking the time and
Totally.
take, like almost 2 hours out of your day for
Thank
me.
you.
So, it's great to have you on, Jen, and congratulations for all your success.
Thank you very
And,
much.
I would love to talk more and hang out and do some other exciting things with you, all right?
Amazing.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Guys, hope you enjoyed the interview. If you haven't liked, comment, or subscribed to Belkins Podcast, I would appreciate if you do that. It's just going to help me a lot to get even better guests and interview them on your behalf. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all in the next interview.